Okay, assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. Uh, are you guys are you guys doing well? Hopefully, everyone is well because this is the fever season. Because we see a lot of people are getting sick, and then we have the COVID coming back, as well as I heard that there are cases of whooping cough. So take care of yourself and be well. Okay. So today we'll be looking at the writing component of your assessment or your course, which is narrative writing. This is part of your last, what we call assessment, which is split into two parts. You have a reading comprehension as well as a writing component, which involves email writing and narrative writing. So today we'll be looking at narrative writing. What is the concept of narrative writing? How you can do it? How do you uh, prepare yourself to do narrative writing so that you will be able to grab the 20 marks that are required for the assessments. Okay, so without further ado, let's look at the lesson. Right, for today we'll be looking at three things, right? So we'll be looking at narrative writing, which is what is narrative writing, the concept of storytelling, and then the concept of narrative writing. The second part, we'll be looking at the elements of narrative writing. What are the key elements? What is the organization of the writing? As well as what is the POV, point of view. So there are several point of views that you can write depending on how you want to write it. Okay? And then point number three, writing style. So everyone have the different writing style. They are done in a different way. For example, you are using bombastic word or you using technical words. Depends on the situation that you are writing. So they focus on the vocabularies and the tenses. So throughout this lesson, we'll be looking at these 3 points so that you will be able to implement it in your narrative writing. Okay, so if you have any question, just ask, raise your hands using the feature in the Google Meet. And if I'm going too fast, please tell me. All right. So let's look at what is narrative writing. What is the concept of storytelling here? Okay, because narrative writing is all about storytelling. So storytelling is the social and cultural activity of sharing stories, sometimes with improvisation, theatrics, or embellishment. When you are sharing, sometimes you meeting your friends, you have a story to tell them. Sometimes you give them you tell them stories. For example, you have met you saw like a very big lion or something in the zoo where that you went the other day, or maybe you have met the most beautiful girl or the most handsome guy. So you are sharing the stories with your friends. Okay. Storytelling is the art of creating and conveying a narrative through various media, including words, images, and sounds. So it has its origins in the oral traditions of ancient civilizations and is an essential element of human culture and communication. So this is just the background of storytelling. What you need to understand the concept of it. Okay. So storytelling serves numerous purposes such as providing information, entertainment, education, and cultural preservation. Because they want to keep the culture, they want to preserve it, so they keep on telling story about, for example, Hang Tuah, maybe the five. We talk about all those stories that we have listened to before. It's because they want to preserve the culture there. And storytelling can be part of education as well. So when you want to educate someone, you can tell about a story of si Tanggang, for example. Do not betray your mother. That can be part of education. Entertainment as well. Because people like to tell story for entertainment. Okay? So this is the concept of storytelling. Why storytelling is excuse me. Why storytelling is important? Because it forges connection between among people. Excuse me. Coughing. Sorry. Because it forges connections among people and between people and ideas. Stories convey the culture, history, and values that unite people. Storytelling also helps with learning because stories are easy to remember. That is correct. When they talk about conveying the culture, maybe you talk about the history of Mat Kilau or something, or the story of Malaysia during their independence. So they convey the culture and the history and what values that can unite people throughout the years. The story of the independence of Malaysia, maybe the story between the war between British and Japan in Malaysia, for something like that. Okay, so it's important because it forges connection between people because you are sharing between each other. Okay, so we're back to our topic. What is narrative writing? Narration is the act of storytelling, and the purpose of narrative writing is to tell story. So you are there to tell story to other people. So that is what you do narrative writing. You write, then to tell a story. Okay. So so your purpose there, you need to make sure whether you are factual or fictional. Your story is the correct or the truth, or is it fictional, something that is made up. Because narrative can be both. It can be something that is really the truth that really happened, or it can be something that you just thought about it and you want to make up on it. So it can be either one. Okay. A factual story is one that is based on and tries to be faithful to actual events such as they unfolded in real life. For example, biography. So whatever happens in that person's life, they will tell it as close to the truth as possible. Okay. For example, the biography of Tun Mahathir, they will talk about what he achieved, what he have, what we call done during his reign as PM of Malaysia, and what have he contributed to Malaysia during his reign. Okay, whereas a fictional story is a made up or imagined story where the writer of the fictional story can create characters or events as he or she sees fit. Something that is made up, something that is not might not be really true pun. Okay, for example, you novel and short story. Maybe the story doesn't really happen, but you can try to make it up to be as close to real life, but it's still fictional. Okay, so factual is something that is the truth, while fictional can be something made up. Okay, understand so far on narrative writing? Yeah. If you are shy to talk in to you can ask in the chat. I forgot about the chat box. All right. So moving on, narrative structure. So this is the structure of a narrative writing and or any standard kind of writing. So we have beginning, bukan beginning, beginning, right? So this is where the reader meets the writing. So this is where you introduce the story here. Okay, introduce what is the background, the story is about who, what are the characters of those things, and then hooking their attention at the beginning is crucial. This is where you want to attract the interest of the reader, because if you don't have a good beginning, you won't have a good what we call people won't just be interested, they won't be interested, they don't want to read the rest. So you need to be careful how you start your beginning. Okay, and then we have the middle. This is where the action happens. This is where the protagonist faces one or more conflicts and reaches the climax, the point where the narrative pivots to the falling action after the protagonist either meets or fails to meet their goal. It means that this is where the build up of the story goes to. Okay, from the for example, the good guy is fighting the bad guy, and then they they meet at the end, at the middle. So they are the struggle between both of them to show whether they are winning or losing. Okay, that is where you talk about in the middle. Okay, and then the last one we have the ending. So this is where you close up the story. So after the climax, the ending wraps up loose story threads, satisfy readers' remaining curiosities, and positions the protagonist for life after the stories happen. Events. after the fight between good and evil, what happens in the end? Maybe the good guy win against the what we call the evil guy. Then they get married with the princess or something. That would be the ending. Or maybe the bad guy won. Then the bad guy uh the bad guy won, and then they what we call they control over the world. That might happen. So that can be part of the ending. Okay, right. Moving on. So characteristics of narrative writing. So there are three characteristics of narrative writing. So descriptive language. This is where you use languages to describe something. Okay, languages to describe. So because descriptive is describing, this type of language evokes feeling rather than directly stating facts. This is where you use metaphors, similes, personification, and onomatopoeia. Okay, personification maybe he is as strong as bamboo, stuck in the ground. So that is you are describing the person as something that is very tough. You give them personification, or you can use similes, metaphors, anything that you know, you can use for your narrative writing, which you need to use actually. Okay. Then plot. Plot is where the structure just now. What happens throughout the story? What is the order of what happens throughout the story? Okay. So the plot is just oh sorry. The plot is a series of events that happen in your narrative. A plot can be simple with only one or two events, or it can be complex and multi-layered. Okay, can be directly introduction, climax, conclusion, or it can be introduction. Then we have the rising action, then climax, falling action, and then the conclusion. So you have more plot points that can be helpful for your writing. Okay, and then characters. The story revolves around those characters. Okay, a story might just have one main character, or it can be a big group. For example, yang the movie like Fast Furious 2, we have like several main characters, or maybe they can only have one main character. For example, the movie about Spider-Man. So the Spider-Man is the main character. So that is what we call protagonist. The narrator is the figure from the story whose point of view the story is being told. Okay, and they might or not interact with the other characters. For example, the narrator is the one who who tells about the story, but he or she might not be part of the story. For example, once upon a time, uh, in the years in the far west or something. So the guy is telling the story, but they might not be part of the story. Okay, yeah, understand so far? Okay, hopefully this helps. Yeah, right. Narrative element, writing elements. So we need to look at the key elements. Excuse me. Right, we need to look at the key elements, the organization, developments, and the point of view. So these are what we call narrative writing elements. Make out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 elements of narrative writing. So we have characters, we have plot, we have setting, we have conflict, we have resolution, we have theme, and we have point of view. So characters, like I mentioned just now, the story revolves around them, each with their own personalities, motivations, and conflicts. So readers or listeners often connect with the characters emotionally. When they have you have a lot of story that you want to tell, so the characters can be a lot, and then they will describe the character physically and inner with the inner characteristic. So they will talk about the features of the characters, how they look, and then their inner characteristic. For example, they are brave or something. They are what we call foolhardy, or maybe they are really what we call evil. So there is characters. Those are characters. And then we move to plot, the sequence of events that make up the story. For example, like I said just now, we have the structure and then we have the plot. So they start with introduction, then we move to the uh, climax, and then we have the ending. Beginning, middle, and end. With series of rising and falling actions. Okay? And then the setting. Setting is where the time and place of the story occurs. Example, it happens in 1958 or something. It happens in a faraway land, or maybe it happens before 11,000 or 100,000 before BC, during the dinosaur age. Konon lah, right? So, and the time and place setting. Setting can significantly influence the mood and the atmosphere of a narrative, because the setting can really make a story. For example, you are talking about a dark and damp sewer in the bustling city of London. So you can imagine this is a dark and gritty story. Maybe they are very, what we call, the story is very this is a murder story. So from the setting you can try to guess the genre of the story. Okay. The conflict. Conflict is a driving force that propels the story forward. It can take various forms, such as internal struggles within a character or external challenges they must overcome. Usually, conflicts when they have between the protagonist and the antagonist, or it can be the protagonist with himself or the society. So it depends on what kind of challenges or conflict that they are facing. Then moving on to the resolution. The resolution provides a sense of closure to the story. It is the ending, basically. Okay, it answers questions, resolves conflicts, and often leaves readers or listeners with a takeaway message. What they can understand from the ending. What is the main value there of the ending? And then we have theme. The underlying message of moral of the story can be explicit or implicit, exploring universal concepts such as love, courage, justice, or the human condition. So theme. So whatever the main idea of the story. Okay. And then last one is the point of view, the perspective from which the story is told. It can be first person, where the narrator is a character in the story. He or she tells it in their he or she tells it in their point of view, because they are part of the story. It can be third person, where you just focus on the character's thoughts and feelings, or omniscient, meaning that the narrator knows all characters' thoughts and feelings, but he's not in there. Okay, he just tells what the character is thinking of and uh, what they are feeling of. Okay, that is omniscience. Right. So I think I mentioned just now, setting is a place of time. The author will describe the time, place, environment to give the readers a mental picture of where the story takes place. They give When you give the setting, they can imagine what is the place looking right now. Okay, so a setting should be descriptive, details, and include adjectives. So, for example, time, it is an important detail. Is it morning? Is it at night? So the author needs to indicate if the story is taking place in the past, present, or future. Maybe it just happened this morning, or maybe it just happened last week, or maybe it will happen in the future. Okay, or maybe they have a futuristic theme to the story. Depends. Okay, and then the place. Where is the location of the what happened, Damia? Okay, so the location of the event. So it can be in the city or specific landmark or building. Maybe it happens in the Twin Tower of Petronas, maybe in the USA where the Statue of Liberty, or maybe the Big Ben in the London. So those can be city or specific landmark, or even any kind of building. So the author provides descriptive details on the physical location of the occurred events. For example, maybe in the jungle, maybe in the mountains, or maybe even in the bustling city. So when you are there doing narrative writing, it is crucial for you to provide settings. Okay. Environment. What is the weather like? Sunny day, gloomy night, cold autumn. Depends on the situation. Okay. Jangan pula tiba suddenly you put apa durian season pula. No. Well, that is not really related. Okay. How does the environment make the main character feel? Gloom and somber mood makes them feel sad, makes them feel tired, or maybe right. Moving back to plot. So as I mentioned, the plot is a sequence of events that make up the story. A well-constructed plot has a beginning, a middle, and end with a series of rising and falling actions. So this is the standard what we call plot diagram, where we can see there is a the diagram here. It looks like a witch hat. Okay, macam topi witch tu. So the this is not just put in like this because there is a reason why they put the diagram like this. So exposition, this is a very basic story stuff. The beginning of the story where the characters and settings are introduced. So that is the exposition. You introduce the character, you introduce the setting, and then you move on to the other parts. Okay. This rising action is where the main character faces a series of conflicts. What kind of conflicts that they face? Example, maybe they need to fight another the antagonist, or maybe they are shunned by the society. So that can be the rising action. This the climax is the most exciting part of the story. This is where we learn the outcome. Okay, what when they conflict here, what happens? What happens next? This is usually in the climax. Okay, maybe the protagonist and the antagonist fight it to the death, and the protagonist won. So this happens during the climax, and then the falling action, the events leading to the end of the story. After the protagonist won, what happens? Maybe the world return back to normal. Maybe the destruction of the world can be cancelled, those kinds of things. Okay, and then resolution. So that is after the end. After few years, what happens? Maybe the world at peace. There no more conflict. The prince or the protagonist married the princess or something like that. So that is the resolution. Okay, this is a standard plot diagram. You whenever you are writing your narrative writing, make sure you remember that you need to follow this plot sequence. Okay, start with the exposition, rising, climax, falling action, and then with the resolution. Okay, this is another part of it, another picture of the plot diagram. And then we move to characters. Characters are the people or others who do the action in the story. The story revolves around them, like I mentioned earlier. Story revolves around them. So we have the protagonist, the main character, the good guy, okay, usually. Is the character whose story is being told as they work toward a goal or face a challenge. Okay. Whereas the opposite of a protagonist is the antagonist. The antagonist isn't necessarily the bad guy. They are simply the character imposing obstacles for the protagonist to overcome. Usually, the antagonist will be the bad guy. For example, Harry Potter and Lord Voldemort. Okay. Protagonist Harry Potter. Antagonist Lord Voldemort. So that will be the characters. And then sometimes we have uh side characters, meaning that or what we call supporting characters, where they are there to support the main characters in their story. Okay, for example, for Harry Potter, we have Hermione, and then we have Ron, and then there are a lot of other characters that help Harry with his quest. Okay, so those are what we call side or supporting characters. Okay, then the conflicts. Conflict is the action that drives the story plot. It's the obstacle the protagonist has to overcome or the goal they're attempting to reach. Okay? The conflict can be internal, for example, aliens setting out to prove herself that she can manage the mission to Earth on her own, or it can be external. Or it can be external, like the protagonist striving to prove her society that Earth is a worldwide planet, which is the blessed relationship. Okay, let's take a break for 5 minutes, okay? 5 minutes break. Okay, continuing on. So conflicts, it can be internal and external. Okay. So internal meaning is that the conflict is between the protagonist and him or herself. Maybe he or she has trust issues. They find it hard to trust other people. So the conflict is between him or herself. Okay. So they are trying to change themselves, also that can be the conflict. Okay. Or can be external, meaning that, like I said, protagonist, antagonist, or it can be protagonist against the society. Maybe they don't trust her or he or she to establish a relationship. So they don't trust them. So he or she tries to prove themselves to the society so that they can be worship for it. Okay, so that is external. Okay, external with somebody else or a society. Internal can be within oneself. These are some of the examples of conflicts. Can be person versus person. So character conflicts between heroes and villains, person versus society, victimized society. For example, the character may be just released from jail. The society doesn't trust them. So there's person versus society. Person versus nature. Okay. The character versus the environment, natural disaster. For example, the movie Quake. Kan? They talk about the earthquake, the biggest earthquake in the world. Okay. And what happens. Okay. Maybe for example, movie about tsunami. They talk about the what happens during the tsunami, how do people try to survive, those kinds of things. But person versus technology is where characters face the results of science moving beyond our control. For example, AI, I robot, maybe what we call the Terminator. Yes, Terminator. So that is person versus technology. Okay, so they are not able to fight the technology without getting like, because it is out of control. Okay, person versus self is the inner struggle I mentioned just now, inner conflict, and then person versus supernatural. The source of conflict is supernatural, shape-shifting it that terrorizes children in Stephen King's novel. Maybe talk about ghosts. Maybe talk about something that doesn't happen naturally. Okay, ghosts, ghouls, zombies. Those are supernatural. Okay, aliens. Those are conflicts with the supernatural. Right. Theme. We move to the theme. Theme is built on a topic, for example, death or hope, the American dream, or etc., and how the topics affect human condition, society, or life. So the theme of the story maybe talk about bravery, or maybe talk about justice, maybe we talk about death. Okay. So as the reader, focus on what the story is revealing about the topic. It should be expressed as a statement, a general observation about human nature. So the theme here is the central message, what they are trying to tell the other people about. So this is the point that author wants readers to take away from their work. Okay, maybe they talk about the theme of love between generations, or love between different species like Twilight. Or maybe the survival or fight. Okay, maybe bravery, or maybe a lot of things. Okay, to identify the theme, how do you identify the theme? You can ask yourself, what is the problem or issue in the story? Because the issue usually tells about the theme as well. Okay, what did the characters learn? Maybe they try to self-sacrifice, or maybe they learn about a family. They learn about friends. Those are the themes. Friendship. How did the characters' feelings or actions change in the story? Maybe at first the main character is a snob, snobbish, a little a boy. Maybe throughout the story he grew up, he becomes a hero. That is the theme, journey. Okay. So the common themes that we usually have, we have family, we have loyalty, love, teamwork, respect, hope, and overcoming challenges. Okay, we have a lot of themes. So whenever you are trying to write your narrative writing, make sure you have the theme first. Okay, then you can create the story based on that. Okay, to help you write a thematic statement, meaning that the statement that contains a theme, consider the following. So what is the story about? The general topic, is it talking about wealth, money, death? Eh? Those you need to think about. How is the topic developed? Consider the characters change, the symbols, climax, etc. Okay, how characters change. Yeah? Do you notice any patterns in imagery, diction, etc.? So those are what you call. Maybe uh, they give you like a back. They try to let you imagine that from this they move into another image. So that is patterns in imagery. Okay. Does the title have any significance? Sometimes you get the theme from the title directly. Okay. So you can try to look at. Does the narrator or character include any statements that reveals a theme or observation? That can be find. You can find a theme from that as well. Okay. To help you construct the thematic statement, make a list of important things, list of important images, topics, etc. found in the text. Okay, try to create a statement that includes the words in your list. Right. Okay. This is what we call. Later, I will try to give you something for you to do so that you will be able to come up with the thematic statement that really helps you to get through this. Okay. Because thematic statement is what you can include in your narrative writing to make it better. Right. Oh, point of view. Okay. In a short story, the point of view refers to the narrative perspective from the story is which is told. I mentioned this earlier, so we look at one by one. What is the point of views that we have? Okay, it determines who is narrating the story and how much information the narrator has access to. Okay, so does the narrator knows everything, or does he knows like only what the character knows, or what does he knows? Those are different point of views. Okay. The point of view influences how readers engage with the characters and events in the narrative. So here's a common point of views used in short stories. Okay. So first person. So the narrator is so the narrator is the character in the story and using pronouns like I, me, and my. I, me, and my mean that narrator is part of the characters in the story and then they are telling the story in their perspective. Okay. So the readers gain insight into the thoughts and feelings of the narrator. So, but there is a limitation here. The perspective is confined to the narrator's experiences and knowledge, potentially creating bias or limited understanding. You won't understand the other characters' punya point of view, only yours, because you are reading through the point of view of the narrator. Only what he knows or he see or hear will be what is available to you. Okay. For example, I walk into the old house and the creaking floorboards echoed with memories. So that is what the person is experiencing. So the second person, it means that the narrator addresses the reader directly using pronouns like you. Okay, it creates a sense of immediacy and involvement, as if the reader is a participant in the story, which is actually is not. Okay, less commonly used in fiction because due to its potential for distancing the reader from the characters. For example, you open the creaky door, and the musty scent of nostalgia hits you. Okay, Usually we don't really use a second person, okay? Because like I mentioned just now, potential for distancing the character from the readers. Okay, you won't feel a sense of connection with the characters, so they avoid second person. Okay, then we have third person limited. Okay, the narrator is external to the story but follows one character closely. It means that they are talking about a particular character, but only that character, not the whole thing. Okay, uses pronouns like he or she or character names. Provide insight into the thoughts and the feelings of the focal characters but not others. So the focus is only on one character rather than the everything. Okay. This usually they focus on the main characters. Okay. They talk about only the main characters, what he or she is feeling, and then what they are doing right now. Okay. For example, she walked through the crowded market. Her eyes searching for a familiar face with in the bustling crowd. So they talk about the point of view of the character only. Okay. But for third person omniscient, the narrator is external to the story and has knowledge of the thoughts and feelings of all the characters. He knows all. Okay. So the third person omniscient offers a broader perspective and can provide information beyond what any one characters know. So whatever for example the characters excuse me. Okay. So the characters are in a group. So the narrator knows what everything everything Irfan, your mic is on. Irfan, your mic is on. Have to mute to Irfan. Or if Irfan, you need to mute. Okay. Right. So, okay. Continuing back to the story. What happens here? What's happening? Okay. Offers a broader perspective and can provide information. I need to mute you because you are disturbing. Okay. Sorry about that. And then the director, okay, offers a broader perspective and can provide information beyond what any one characters know. Okay, it means that he knows about everything in the group. Okay, may lead to a more objective viewpoint because you are not focusing on only one viewpoint because you are focusing on a lot. Okay, for example, as they argued, the omniscient narrator understood that neither of them knew the real reason behind the disagreement. So A and B doesn't know why they are disagreeing between one another. So, but the narrator knew. Okay, so that is what we call third person omniscient. But third person objective pula, the narrator is external to the story and only reports observable actions or and dialogue. He doesn't delve into the thoughts or emotions of characters, and then it creates a sense of detachment and objectivity. It means that you don't really like what we call focus on the character, but you focus on whatever the narrator sees. Okay, so whatever the narrator sees, that will be the what he or she will describe. Okay, so the third point, the structure. So you need to be able to organize the story. So how do you do it? First one, setup. So you do the introduction. You introduce the main characters. You do the setting, and then the initial situation or conflict. Okay, and then you provide the inciting incident. Present an event or circumstance that disturbs the status quo and sets the story in motion. Mean, meaning this is where you provide the conflict. Okay, and then establishing normalcy. Okay, show the characters everyday life before the central conflict arises. Before the conflict happens, try to show whatever happens. For example, maybe the characters are having a peaceful daily life. They can go fish. They can work on their farm. And then, oh my God, Ifan, please. Anyone who knows Ifan, try ask him to try to not unmute himself or something. I feel like he is putting his phone in his pocket or something. I might have to remove him from the call if he's keep on doing this. Okay. And then end of Act One, turning point, a significant event that propels the characters into the main conflict, marking the end of the setup. Okay. Sorry, I really have to remove him. Okay, because he's disturbing the class right now. Okay. So Act One, a turning point, a significant event that propels the characters to the main conflict, marking the end of setup. This is where you move from the first introduction to move into the other parts of the story. You show the turn off events. Okay. For example, in a mystery novel, Act One you might introduce the detective, crime scene, and the first clues. Okay. The inciting incident could be discovery of a murdered victim. So that is an example. So the structure. You provide the characters and then you provide the conflict that happens here. Okay. Right. Then Act Two, confrontation, or this is what you call the rising action. Okay. Obstacle and challenges, whatever kind of obstacles that the characters face, this is where you include it. The main characters encounter a series of challenges, conflicts, and obstacles that escalate tension. Whatever that happens during the what we call the story. Okay. And then the character development, explore the character's motivations, relationships, and personal growth. Why does the character want to overcome the conflict? And what happens between the relationship? They become better or they become more distant, or maybe, and then the personal growth. Okay, personal growth of the character. Is he becoming better or becoming worse? So this is the character development. And then the midpoint, a significant event that changes the course of a story, often involving a twist or elevation. For example, the one of the character betrayed the main character. For example, or maybe you are trying to save the world, but actually you are dooming the world. So that is the midpoint. Okay, significant the twist there. Okay, we can include that. And then intensification, intensification. So this is the escalation of the conflict and build towards the story's climax. For example, you want to save the world, but actually you are actually dooming the world, and then everything happens and everything dies. So that is the escalation. Okay. And then end of Act Two, turning point, a major setback of or elevation that raises the stakes or raises the stakes and propels the story towards its resolution. Excuse me. Okay, example. In a romance story, Act 2 might involve the protagonist navigating misunderstandings, external challenges, and internal conflicts. The midpoint could be a realization of true feelings. Okay, what they feel between each other. ah, oh my God. And then Act 3, which is the resolution or climax. So the climax is the highest point of tension and the most crucial moment in the story. Okay, The central in conflict is addressed and the characters face their most significant challenge. For example, the battle between the good guys and the bad guys. Avengers versus Thanos, for example. Okay. Falling action is where the aftermath of the climax, where loose ends are tied up and the story's resolution begins. Okay. What happens after the fight between good and evil? And then what happens in the end? Okay, then they move into the resolution, which is the what happens in the end. Final outcome of the story where the characters' arcs are concluded and any remaining questions are answered. Is the person still alive? Or maybe what happens to the other characters? Those are the resolution. And then the conclusion. When the story comes to a close, leaving a lasting impression on the audience. Okay? Maybe they happily ever after. Usually like that. Okay? In a thriller, example, in a thriller, Act 3 might involve the protagonist confronting the antagonist, a high stakes action sequence, and the resolution of the mystery. Like I mentioned just now, Avengers vs. Thanos. So the fight between them, and then what happens in the end. Okay, spoiler alert. Something like that. Okay. So writing style. This last part, we try to move as fast as we can so to finish the lesson. Okay. Writing style. We have vocabularies, phrases, and tenses for the writing style. The writing style, the author style has to do with his or her vocabulary, use of imagery and tone, and the feeling of the story. For example, the tone is happy, so the writing style will be more happy, jovial, some sort of that. Or the tone is very dark. They use words that relates to somber, to darkness, so those kind of things. Okay, it has to do with the author's attitude towards the subject. Okay, whatever the author is feeling about the subject, that is what we call the writing style will be influenced. In some short stories, the tone can be ironic, humorous, cold, or dramatic. So, is the author's language full of figurative language, metaphors, symbols, and personification? Maybe. Okay. Then language style is a crucial element that contributes to the overall atmosphere. Okay. Tone and impact of the narrative. The different styles of language can evoke various emotions, create vivid imagery, and engage engage readers in unique ways. So these are several language styles that you can be found in short stories. Okay, we have descriptive, conventional tone, or symbols of figurative language. Okay, descriptive utilizes vivid and sensory details to paint a picture of readers. This is where they describe. Excuse me. They describe the characters, the location, those kinds of things. Okay, it appeals to the five senses, creating a rich and immersive experience. So it helps to enhance the setting and the characterization. So, example, the moon hung in the sky like a silvery pendant, casting a soft glow on the abandoned mansion's crumbling walls. So they give you an image there. It describe you the moon on the moon, and then the setting. So you have an image in your mind when you listen to that. Okay, when you read that. So there is an image in your brain, and then becomes immersive for you to imagine about that. Conventional tone. So the conversational tone, it means that you are doing it in a form of conversations. Okay, mimics natural speech patterns to create a sense of intimacy and familiarity. It often involves colloquialism, contractions, and informal language. Okay, it helps establish a connection between the readers and the reader, characters and the reader. For example, she was like, "I can't believe you're here," and I was all, "Yeah, surprise." So it makes like it, like a conversation. Okay, so that is conversational tone. And then language style number three, symbolic or figurative language. Uses metaphors, similes, and other figurative devices to convey deep meanings. So they use those kinds of deeper language, for example, metaphor. as dark as red as blood, crimson as crimson blood, or something like that. Okay, or other figurative language devices. So you can try to look at all those. Okay, encourages the readers to interpret the story on a symbolic level and adds layers of complexity to the narrative. Okay, let's look at example. A laughter echoed through a room. A melody that danced like sunlight filtering through the leaves. That is a simile. Okay, so that is what we call the symbolic atau figurative language. Okay, so these are some words that you can use. Uh, these are chronological transition words where you can use. Excuse me. Where you can use to show the chronological order or the the order of things. Okay, for example, you can use after, soon as, at last, before, currently, during, eventually, those kinds of things. Okay, so these are what you can use for your narrative writing. Okay, and then the tenses, right? Tenses, there are a lot here, but remember they are standard: past, present, future, and then you can mix between past and present, then past perfect, and then present perfect tense. Okay, so you can read it on your own. Tenses is because it's very like just repeating back of we have what have we learned before. So past, present, future, present tense, past perfect, and present perfect. Sometimes we have future perfect, but depends on the situation. Okay, so we are the end of the lesson. So to sum it up, narration is the art of storytelling. It can be either factual or fictional. In either case, narrative should be emotionally engage the reader because you want them to feel interested in what you are writing. Okay, so they will be hooked to your writing. Most narratives are composed of major events sequenced in chronological order. Time transition words and phrases are used to orient the reader in the sequence of a narrative. So the four basic components of narratives are plot, character, conflict, and theme. So those are what you need to include for your narrative writing. And the use of sensory details is crucial to emotionally engage the reader. Okay. A strong direction is important to hook the reader. So this is where you provide a good setting, characters, and then a good image for the reader to be interested in what you are writing. Okay. A strong conclusion should add resolution to the conflict and evoke the narrative's theme, meaning that it makes the reader remember about the story, makes them remember about the theme and the key points that the author is trying to tell to the readers. Okay, so that is what you should be able to do. Okay. Right, that is all for today. That is all for the lesson. Thank you very much. So I hope that this will be able to help you guys with your narrative writing because this won't be that hard as long as you know what you need to do, what you need to include, as well as whatever is important for you to be able to uh devise a good narrative writing. Okay. So